let's cut to the chase. Why did Fox cut you loose? What the f is going on,
These
man?
are the hard questions.
You're not a supporter anymore.
Joe says, well, Ariel Helwani likes to get people to say things. What the f is that all about?
You're an excellent reporter, and I'm a fan. 2 thumbs up.
It seems to me there's been some tension between Joe and Ariel ever since the Brock Lesnar thing, Ariel leaking information. Joe Rogan talked about it on his podcast, and Ariel Helwani definitely didn't appreciate, the way Joe told the story. Joe Rogan was on, the UFC side. It's more of a company man versus Ariel, who was rebelling. It seems to be rebelling from an outsider's perspective, when the Brock Lesnar situation happened, rebelling against the UFC, leaking private information that he wasn't supposed to leak. He says, that's his job. He's a journalist. That's what he's supposed to do. So that's really what started the tension between these two guys. Other than that, I think Joe and Ariel were on good terms. But fast forward to 2023, and they're having a little bit of chirping going on. Both of them saying some things on their platforms. But let's check it out. Let's see what they had to say.
The two talked about his fight against Sean Brady, and Brady saying that someone on the internet threatened him or his wife that he would bury him in the desert. Jamie said that Sean told this on your show, to which Rogan said that you like to make people say certain things. What are your thoughts on that? I think it's a shame that he seems to have such an opinion of you, and we will probably never see you and him on a show together. Best regards from Northern Germany to the whole crew. You make time go by faster at work. At 2:52 and 22 seconds, Joe says, well, Ariel Helwani likes to get people to say things. What the f is that all about?
It's unfortunate because Ariel and Joe Rogan, I feel like if you really put them in a room together, they would be able to talk their beef out, because I really don't think there is much of a beef. Joe Rogan is going to say what he feels on his podcast. I mean, he isn't going to hold anything back. I think we all know that about Joe if you watch his podcast. And Ariel Helwani obviously didn't appreciate what Joe Rogan had to say in the past about him. And not that Joe Rogan has said anything that serious. I mean, it honestly hasn't been that bad. I do get where Ariel is coming from. Joe Rogan is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, platform in the space, especially, in the MMA space. So I can see why Ariel wouldn't want the biggest platform speaking negatively about him, but I really don't think Joe has anything against Ariel Helwani. I've heard Joe say numerous times Ariel Helwani is, one of the best journalists that we have in mixed martial arts. I just really don't think they have that much of a beef. I wish they could, get on a phone, squash it out, because I would like to see Ariel Helwani go on Joe Rogan, or Joe Rogan go on the MMA Hour. These guys did talk on a podcast before. I think it was The Fighter and the Kid, Brian Callen, Brendan Schaub. They called in and spoke with Ariel, and Joe Rogan was also there. And, they seemed to be on great terms back then. I think that was, 2016, 2017. But let's keep it rolling.
First of all, I didn't get Sean Brady to say that. Sean Brady just offered that up on his own. How could I have gotten him to say that? And what does that even mean in general? Ariel Helwani likes people to say things, or to get people to say things. And especially, Rich, coming from the guy who, was pushing false narratives and false information.
I just want to pause Ariel really quickly. I know Ariel has been 10-7ing a lot of people, a lot of fighters, but when you're messing with Joe Rogan, you have to tread lightly, especially if you're Ariel Helwani. You have to pick your battles. And Joe Rogan is a behemoth. He isn't a Dana White, where a lot of people don't like Dana White. A lot of people in Ariel's community also respect and watch Joe Rogan. So if you're Ariel Helwani right here, you have to be thinking, is this worth it? Going at the honcho, because you could say Joe is one of the honchos in this space. Is this worth it? And it looks like Ariel Helwani is double downing, and looks like he's coming at Joe a little bit here with some personal attacks a little bit. Now, you could say Ariel is doing the same thing to Joe that Joe is doing to Ariel, which is fair, but I just don't think that Joe has any real beef against Ariel. I think Ariel is taking this a little bit out of proportion, kind of blowing up something that doesn't need to be blown up, and he's just picking the wrong battle, in my opinion. And once again, Ariel is a friend of the show. We like Ariel Helwani. Big fan of Ariel Helwani, big fan of Joe, but we have to keep it fair. If I don't agree with Ariel Helwani, I have to tell you that I don't agree with him. And fake information and all kinds of nonsense over the past 2 years, to the point where, people were demanding that he get dropped from Spotify, which I never agreed with. But that's Rich. Of course, we know what the history is with Joe.
He's Dana's boy. He's always going to have his back. But what are we talking about? Ariel Helwani likes to get people to say things. I ask questions. People answer them. I move on. Like, this is a very tired and honestly, and again, I didn't see this, so I'm going by what is being said to me here.
And this is another mistake that Ariel is making right here. He hasn't even heard the clip of Joe Rogan speaking about him, and he's already jumped to conclusions. He's already said, oh, that's Dana's boy. And look, like I said earlier, I'm on the same page with Ariel Helwani when he was going back and forth with Patty, when he goes back and forth with Dana. For the most, even when he was going back and forth with Sean Strickland just a couple weeks ago, 98% of the time, I agree with Ariel. But right here, I mean, I just don't know where he's going with this, saying that Joe is spreading misinformation. And, you know, if you actually watch Joe Rogan's podcast, he's been the same guy. I mean, he always pretty much questions all his guests. And I mean, how can you spread misinformation? I mean, he's literally just on a podcast talking about his life, his personal experiences. He's not advocating for people to replicate what he's doing, for people to copy what he's doing. And I think for the people who really watch Joe Rogan, I mean, you already know that. You already know what Ariel is saying right here is it's bogus. I mean, it truly is. And
we know that, you know, Belal isn't exactly the biggest fan of mine, so I don't know exactly what, you know, the whole context was and all that nonsense. But amazing to me that a guy who sits in his chair with his headset and this microphone or some version of the microphone thinks that I'm getting people to say things. What are you talking about? At least I ask people questions about, you know, topics that I'm somewhat well versed in, as opposed to, you know, someone who sits in front of his guests and pretends to know more about a topic when they're talking to an expert and pretend to be interested about the topic.
So I completely disagree with Ariel here. You know, I'm not trying to sit here and like defend Joe's honor. He doesn't need my defending, worth a couple $100 million. I mean, Joe's completely fine. I'm just trying to be unbiased. I'm trying to, you know, be fair. I've been watching both of these guys for years now, a very long time, as I'm sure a lot of you guys have. But what he's saying right now about Joe Rogan, it's just simply not true. And you can tell this is personal for Ariel Helwani. You know, he has history with Joe Rogan. You know, he's mentioning, oh, Joe's Dana's boy. I mean, you could just hear like almost like a bit of hatred from Ariel Helwani to Joe Rogan. Because I do think what Joe Rogan said, I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world compared to what you're saying, where you're kind of like personally attacking him.
Now I'm going on and on about something that I don't really want to go on and on about, but that is a weird comment.
And you see right there, Ariel, I feel like he kind of caught himself there. I don't want to keep going on and on about this. If it was someone else, if it was a Sean Strickland or a Patty Pimblett or some other fighter, we would see a completely, you know, we would see 10-7 Ariel Helwani. You know, his energy would be on another level, but he knows he's dealing with a behemoth. He knows he's treading on thin ice here. I mean, when you're in Ariel's position, once again, you have to really pick your battles, because when you're getting into these kind of beefs every, you know, couple months, 3-4 months, that's what it seems to be going on with Ariel Helwani. Once again, nothing against Ariel. Got to keep it fair. Dude's been beefing with a lot of fighters. Yes, you can say he's just defending himself, but at the end of the day, he's getting into online beefs with personalities. But let's see if there are any final words here from Ariel.
It is a really weird comment. Ariel Helwani likes to get people to say things. I mean, yes, I do like when people say things to me. That would be an answer to a question.
And Joe Rogan would say, yes, I like to ask questions to my guest. That is my job. He is literally the only person in that room. Of course, he's going to ask questions. Does he try to act like he's smarter than the expert in their field? I mean, hey, that's a subjective thing. I'm sure if you probably don't like Joe, that's what you think. I do think, you know, it makes for good content, him questioning these experts, and I don't think he does it, you know, every time. I haven't seen every Joe Rogan podcast episode, but I've definitely seen a lot of them, and I never thought, oh, wow, Joe Rogan's trying to tell this expert in their field what's going on. And yeah, he may challenge some things, as anyone in his position should. One, it makes for good content. Two, you may just be genuinely curious about the topic.
But other than that, I'm not really sure what he's referring to. I mean, I guess I kind of know what he's referring to. I guess he's trying to say that I get people to say things to create controversy or headlines or any kind of nonsense. Meanwhile, I have nothing to do with any of that. I'm not going like, let me write an article about this. The guy said it, and then I moved on.
So a lot of people commenting on this aren't really agreeing with Ariel, just as I suspected. Anatomy of a Fighter, he makes really good content in the MMA space. He simply says, "This ain't it, Chief." And, I'm right there with him on that. Someone else says, Aljamain Sterling, not someone else. Aljamain Sterling, this was really weird. They both have conversations with people. One is looking for scoops, history, or potential viral moments, clip moments, and to sometimes tell a story. The other is talking to people and not always having a clue about anything the guest is an expert in. Someone else says, I like Ariel, but that's a lame stretch. I agree with him as well. Look, I like Ariel. He's done more for the sport than bad, but not everything is a slight against him like he seems to think it is. I think Joe was talking about what Nate Diaz said about instigating more so than just being Dana's boy. Kind of a silly retort on Ariel's part. So yeah, you can just tell, looks like 85, 90% of these replies are all, in Joe Rogan's favor. And that's why when you're Ariel, you have to be careful who you're getting into beefs with. If you're in the MMA space, Joe Rogan is probably the last person you want to beef with. And Ariel Helwani is also on that list as well. But I think Joe Rogan is probably the number one guy you probably don't want to beef with if you want to thrive in the MMA space. And look, this is a prime example. People are, coming to Joe's defense because, and it's not even in Joe's defense. Ariel is just, he's kind of reaching here. He really is. So this is a really good point. I just found this tweet. Ariel knows what Joe means. When Masvidal didn't want to speak about prison is an example of that. He pushes and he instigates. Ariel knows exactly what he means. Okay, and let's find the clip that he is referring to. Where is it? Right here.
I think a lot of people don't know this. You have spent time in jail.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about that.
Why not?
We'll skip that one.
No. How old were you?
When
you were in
to
jail?
Disney World the first time? Or?
No, the other Disney, the complete opposite.
And those are rumors that I went to jail.
Okay.
That might not even be true, man.
You don't want to talk about it?
Skip.
Okay. Can I ask about your father?
Yeah.
He has been to jail as well.
I hate that this video was coming off like I hate Ariel Helwani or something like that, because I really don't. I think Ariel's one of the best journalists in MMA, probably the number one journalist. Absolutely, I would agree with that 100%. But here at the MMA Connect, we're gonna keep it fair. We're gonna keep it 100. We're not gonna play any favorites. Ariel ain't playing any favorites, so we got to give him the same treatment as well. It looks like Ariel Helwani did address some of the backlash he was receiving on the same live stream, I believe.
Also, just want to say one quick thing, because I see some tweets popping up about the Joe Rogan question. Again, one thing I love about this segment in particular, and I love the people that clip it off and everything like that, but I love when the comments are, Ariel won't shut up about X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, do you not realize that I'm being asked this? And I could see why people who sit in Eddie's chair, even Dana's chair, it's like, I'm asked a question, I'm going to answer it. It's not like I've said, hey, today I'd like to talk about Joe Rogan or anything like that. No.
So I understand what Ariel is saying here. He's just responding to a fan, but at least pull the clip up. The fan literally could be lying to you, and then boom, you started this huge beef, and Joe Rogan didn't say shit about you. And I'm sure Ariel's phone was blowing up, and I'm sure he noticed, okay, I should probably address this. 95% of people who are tweeting at me are pretty much disagreeing with what I'm saying. I'm curious to see if he's going to kind of backtrack what he said, kind of take some things back. Let's see what Ariel has to say. Come on, Ariel. Make this right.
No, that's the segment. You jabron. So I'm asked the question, I answer it. Now, again, I did not hear Joe Rogan's comments, but as I've detailed before, at my lowest, he spread lies about me. At my lowest, right? 2016 UFC 199. So, I don't give a fuck. That's something I'll never forget.
I'm like, Ariel, you're Ariel Helwani. Bro, I think you can get in contact with Joe Rogan and try to clear this up. I know you have like an uncle or a brother who's friends with Joe Rogan. He's been on the podcast multiple times. Why doesn't Ariel try to, settle this beef, end this beef with Joe? Let's see you guys do a podcast. Because the funny thing about all of this is, once again, if these guys got put together in a room, I don't think they would have any real problems. You know, Ariel's holding on to a grudge from shit that happened years ago, you know, when Joe Rogan pretty much said the narrative everyone ran with, that Ariel Helwani leaked information that he wasn't supposed to leak. I mean, is Ariel Helwani still holding on to this? You know, I'm trying to see Ariel's perspective. You know, I guess Joe saying that could have a dramatic effect on your career if you're Ariel Helwani. I'm trying to look at both sides, but I'm just leaning more towards Joe Rogan at this point. I just don't think Joe is trying to maliciously attack Ariel, and Ariel's being a bit malicious here.
It was a complete total lie, and I never got an apology for that. So, you know, you guys may think whatever you want to think, but like I see a comment like that, yeah, I'm going to respond to it because it's a bullshit comment from someone who's, you know, an interviewer, and joking or not, it's just stupid. It's stupid. So I don't give a fuck. That's an L. That's a big L. That's a common Helwani L. I don't give a fuck. I could not give two shits. Okay. But recognize, you idiots, I'm being asked these questions. These things are being clipped off. You're not even seeing me answer the questions. And maybe, you know, there should be a little context there, or maybe not. Who gives a shit? But, you know, you can go and comment on it all you want and make your breakdowns. That's the segment.
I find it weird that Ariel is expecting an apology from Joe Rogan from, once again, shit that happened years ago. If you're waiting for that apology, that's never coming. I can tell you that. Joe ain't going to apologize for what 90% of the MMA community was saying about you, regardless if it was lies or if it was true. He didn't go on the podcast and say, this happened 1000%. Ariel's, fuck Ariel, get Ariel fired. He pretty much regurgitated the exact narrative that everyone was running with. I mean, that's like expecting an apology from everyone in the MMA community. At one point in time, everyone thought that Ariel did something, leaked information, and he got fired, and people thought, well, shit, he leaked the information. That's what happens. Now, obviously, Ariel has his own perspective on that. He thinks, you know, he got a scoop and he released a scoop. He's a journalist. That's what he's supposed to do. But to hold a grudge for Joe Rogan, I mean, Joe Rogan had shit to do with what you did. I mean, Joe's just doing his podcast. He's on his platform giving his opinion. He's not saying this is facts, guys. This is just my opinion. This is what I heard. But once again, just a simple phone call between these guys could settle a lot of this.
Good, bad, ugly. We're here answering questions. And if you don't like it, say love you.
So yeah, I mean, we know if you watch Ariel, you know Ariel's a bit upset there. I mean, he's seeing the backlash, he's seeing the comments, the tweets, he's saying he doesn't give a fuck. I mean, he gives a little bit of a fuck, that's for sure, or he wouldn't even address this. He would just keep going on with his show. So yeah, if Ariel Helwani was 6-0, 7-0 against, you know, Brendan Schaub and Dana and Patty Pimlet, Sean Strickland, I'm sure there's a couple more that I'm missing. I think this is his first time getting 10-7'd. This is his first stain on his record. Just wasn't smart commenting on something where you haven't even seen the clip. It's not smart coming at Joe Rogan, who is 95% loved by people in the MMA space. And you can just tell it's definitely a bit more personal on Ariel Helwani's side, calling Joe Rogan Dana's boy. You know Ariel doesn't like Dana. So to call Joe Rogan Dana's boy, I mean, that's definitely a shot. Ariel feels that Joe has spread lies about him in the past from fucking years ago. I mean, how do you not let that go? The few times that I've heard Joe Rogan talk about Ariel Helwani, they've been kind of positive, to be totally honest. Unless I'm missing something, you know, I know the whole Brock Lesnar situation wasn't, you know, positive, but other than that, I mean, I've heard Joe say how great Ariel is, how good of a reporter Ariel is. Joe Rogan probably isn't the biggest fan of Ariel, but I don't think it's like personal with Ariel. I just feel this personal, you know, kind of, once again, I'm using this word very loosely, a hatred towards Joe Rogan because his association with Dana White, because, you know, he's a company man. But yeah, once again, I mean, I debated on making this video. I just didn't know if I wanted to cover this, only because I'm a fan of both of these guys. I don't want to see both these guys beefing. I really don't. And I know, you know, 90% of people, 95% of people watching this video are big fans of both of them as well, just like me. My advice to Ariel and Joe, not that they would ever take it, get on a phone call. Don't even do a podcast. Just just call each other, DM each other, clear whatever beef this has. Both of you guys could make such great content together. Why wouldn't Ariel want, you know, some of the Joe Rogan juice, and vice versa? I mean, Ariel also has a major platform in MMA as well. I mean, both of these guys, why not at least try to settle the beef instead of taking these little pot shots here and there, going back and forth? I mean, both of these guys, Joe's in his 50s, Ariel's like 40. Do we really need to be going back and forth when a simple phone call, a simple text message could probably end this? Ariel Helwani's friends with Andrew Schultz. Ariel Helwani knows a lot of people around Joe Rogan. You know, extending a simple, hey Joe, can we speak about this situation? Can we get some clarification on what happened here? I think Joe Rogan would try to make this happen. So yeah, man, it just sucks. It sucks to see these two guys going at it, but it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know this is a bit of a long one. Just wanted to mix it up, switch it up. But let me know what you guys think about this beef. Is there any real beef? I don't even think it's a real beef. Let me know what you guys think about this little banter, this back and forth. I mean, both of these guys are too rich and too old to be having this little back and forth, if you ask me. We got real shit going on. Get on a fucking phone, Ariel and Joe, end this shit, this fucking lame beef. I mean, come on. Anyways, please be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already, and watch this video next.